Hey everybody, this is Kason Knight over at I Saw It's 3D Printing. We noticed that one of our most popular videos on YouTube is simply doing a tour of our facility. It's brand new year, 2024. A lot has changed. We figured we'd give you an updated tour right now. So first and foremost, we have about a 10,000 square foot building. We're located in North Houston, just north of Grand Parkway, adjacent to Kirkendall and Dowdell. We are what we believe we want to be one of the largest additive manufacturing privately owned facilities in really the nation, but more specifically in Texas. And that's interesting because there's a lot of industries inside of Texas that could benefit from additive technology, such as aerospace, automotive, and energy. As we go into the building, you'll see our reception area. We do always encourage visits. We can give you a tour of facility. We can talk about your specific project, or you can pick up your parts. Got our conference room over here, pretty standard stuff, where we meet every morning and talk about our operations. And because we deal with a lot of parts, a lot of moving components, typical lead time is anywhere between 24 hours to about 2 weeks on average. So things constantly are evolving, and the operations side of our business can be one of our most complex. As we head up to our kind of engineering bullpen, we'll just give you a real quick view of it. On the engineering side, we do engineering design work as a contractor, but we always try to be very specific and only work on projects that we know we can provide specific value based on our experience and technical abilities. Now, with that in mind, though, with the engineering that we do, we always look at every single part that we produce from a technical perspective. If there's a way that we can improve the design to give you a better result with 3D printing, we'll definitely recommend that. We're definitely not plug and play. We don't just take the parts and throw it into the printer and hope for the best. One of my favorite views is right out this window. You can get a sneak preview of the FDM Print Farm, and I'll talk about that, of course, a little bit more, but I just thought it was a really cool view, and I would show you that. As we head back downstairs, I would mention that we also, in addition to engineering, do 3D scanning. We kind of do it as an engineering service. Right here we have our Einscan Pro HD, which is a really diverse scanner that allows all sorts of different surface finishes to be scanned very well. I think we got that from our friends over at Vision Miner, so shout out to those guys. They do some really great work. As we head downstairs, I'll tell you a little bit about who we are in case you don't know. We're an organically grown company. We started under the premise that 3D printing was quickly evolving. We thought that the cost would be driven down more and more, and we can take the scale up more and more. So with that in mind, our core bread and butter is producing high volumes of end-use functional part using 3D printing as our primary tool of choice. Fundamentally, though, we are still a manufacturing company. So as we head out into the shop, you'll see actually some of our first printers. We have the FDM Print Farm here. We have about 130 to 140 active printers at any given time. We've actually increased those numbers and decreased those numbers depending on kind of how our business is evolving. On the FDM side of things, we have a lot of different materials. Of course, we deal with PLA, ABS, PETG, TPU, a lot of the carbon fiber, composites, all those types of things. Probably our biggest bread and butter, though, is ABS and ASA. We really like ASA because of its UV resistance. Now, one of the things, I'll take a quick pit stop here and show you our dashboard for our FDM Print Farm. This allows us to monitor the status of every single printer, and it's ultimately critical to our operations. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do it the way that we do. Now, as we head back this way, you'll notice that we have our industrial machines over here. We got Randy with Impact Systems here working on some of these machines. They are very complicated, and so things do happen. Luckily, those guys do really great service and get them things back online really quickly. Now, the MJF technology, though, is industrial, and the reason we've invested in it is because of the ability to allow us to scale up to a degree that we simply would eventually plateau with on the FDM Print Farm. So to give you a real quick overview of how this machine works, it is powder-based, similar to SLS or selective laser sintering. But the difference being is rather than using a laser, it uses a series of heat lamps and fusing lamps on either side of this carriage, and in the middle of the carriage is an actual print head or series of print heads. So it'll quite literally print the cross-sectional area of the part using what they call a fusing agent. I'll simplify it, and we'll just imagine that it's just black ink and the powder is white. If we heat the white powder up and then we apply black ink, then the black areas of the part will absorb more energy from the fusing lamps and allow it to tip just below the T-melt to just over the T-melt. That's what causes the fusing of the specific part. Now, with that in mind, this carriage moves across in just a matter of seconds, printing the entire cross-sectional area of every single part within the three-dimensional build volume. So that allows us to produce a lot more parts in a shorter amount of time. For a sense of scale, we always say that this one machine or this series of machines can outproduce roughly 80 to 100 of the FDM standard FDM 3D printers that we have on the other side. So it allows us to significantly increase our production capacity without also having to invest in a much higher footprint. Now, I'll show you a little bit more about our different printers, but one of the things that we're most proud of with the MJF technology is just our sheer size of our fleet and the diversity of our fleet. Now, over here we just showed you the 5200 series, which is the latest and greatest MJF produced machine, but we also have the 4200 series, which is the original that was out about 6-7 years now. Now, basically, they took this machine, they fixed it all the minor things that went on, and just made some really good iterative improvements that ultimately increased the production capacity by about 40%. So it's a really great upgrade with these 5200 series. On the 4200 series, we have, I think, 4 different materials. We have PA12 nylon, which is the bread and butter. We also have PA11, which is more ductile and impact resistance. We have PA12 glass bead, which is more rigid than the standard nylon. And we also have TPA, which is a really diverse, really versatile, flexible material. Over here, we have our original multi-jet machine that we first got introduced to the technology with, which is the HP 580. This also produces with a PA12 nylon material, but it also allows us, it's locked right now, but there's inside of here a series of color inks that we can actually apply to the outer layer of the part. So this one actually just finished and is cooling now, but we can show you a little bit of those parts in the showroom in just a minute. In my opinion, it's one of the best appearance or cosmetic parts that we can produce because you can print full bedded color directly on it. And in contrast to other 3D printing full color technologies, that's made out of a high strength nylon material, so it's not fragile. So we talked about the 4200s here, and these are actually 4210s, which actually means we can reduce our operating costs. It's kind of like a more production optimized machine. Now, last one is the one over here in the corner. This is actually our newest machine. It's called the 5420W. Now, this is very similar to the 5200 series, which we looked at just a minute ago. But the difference here is rather than a standard, what they call fusing agent, this is a white fusing agent. It's a really unique chemical that actually gets applied as a relatively dark ink. But after it's applied to the heat and the fusing process, it quickly fades to that bright white cool color that we get. So we'll kind of transition back around here, and I'll talk just a little bit of our auxiliary equipment that is also really important that a lot of people don't realize is required in a facility like this. Compressed air systems and power are 2 of the most heavily needed resources that we need in this facility. A sense of scale, that's about 150 CFM at 150 PSI. Now over here we have our Ascentium, which was just recently announced is potentially going to be acquired by Nexa 3D. We've worked with Ascentium for quite some time, really like this particular technology. It is, of course, FDM or FFS based, which we have our print farm, but this is a much more industrial machine. It's a fully heated chamber, really nice drive system, and extrusion system is really great as well. It gives us the ability to do what we call super polymers. So not just ABS and ASA in really high volumes, but we can deal with the high temperature materials such as PEEK, PEC, and Ultim, and all of those materials are also generally chemically resistant, which some of the more consumer grade materials you won't have that type of chemical resistance that you might need for applications such as in the oil and gas industry. Now, as we transition to the other side of the shop, which is actually what I'm more proud of over here, because most people think about the 3D printing, but they don't necessarily think about the post-production side of it. And this is, in my opinion, the most complicated, but also the most important part of the entire workflow. So there's a lot of equipment. I'm not going to go through each individual one, but essentially this is what allows us to take our MJF and our SLS parts and apply the different finishing options such as black dye or vapor treatment to smooth the surfaces, or just different surface finishing options like poly shot or shot peening. The other thing I will quickly note is we also have the HP Automatic Unpacker, which is essentially just a device that allows us to very quickly unpack the parts to deal with the amount of volumes that we have. Those types of things are important not only to us, but also to our clients, because it helps us ensure that we have parts out on time and we can reduce our operating costs and in turn reduce the price per part. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the processing stations, but while we're here, I'll talk about the AM Flow. This is one of our most recent additions to the shop and one of the things we're most excited about it. I think there's a dedicated video already. I'll put a link to that in the description. But what this is a really high-level overview. It uses kind of machine learning, artificial intelligence to essentially put a part onto a conveyor belt. It goes into a camera array that takes pictures from multiple different angles of the actual part that we produce. It compares those pictures to a database that we have of all of our parts to identify what that part is, what order it's associated, and where it needs to go next in the workflow. All this happens in a matter of seconds, and it definitely has helped us improve our operations and, most importantly, improve our quality control, because we're now taking the time that used to be spent on auxiliary tasks and focusing more on inspecting the parts and making sure they're moving through. Really, really cool technology. Again, if you have any interest in that, definitely take a look at the other video where we go into that a little bit more in depth. Now, over here on this side, we have all of our processing, or most of our processing stations, HP MJF processing stations, which have dedicated materials. There is an investment that is required to add new materials, and so that is something we're very proud of. The fact that we don't just offer nylon, we offer the PA11s, the PA12 glass beads, and some of these other materials means that we don't have to have any sort of sacrifice or try to push our clients into a material that is maybe not most suitable to their specific application. So over here is one of the few printers that we actually have on this side of the shop, but there's a reason as to why. This is the XYZ, or also a Nexa 3D acquisition. So this means that we actually have two Nexa 3D systems inside of our facility, and we're really excited about growing that relationship with Nexa 3D. But what makes this one unique is it's actually been kind of optimized a little bit to run on our byproduct powder from the multi-jet fusion technology. It's taken us from having a very small waste product to essentially having zero waste product. So we can, and that's again why we have it on this side of the shop. We take the overflow powder from the unpacking station just around the corner, and we can filter it and sieve it and now put it into this machine and make low-cost alternative. Now I'll swing over here and show you a couple of things. This is our post-processing side, and this is where we handle most of the parts. A couple of things of note is just the sheer volume that we deal with. Now, these shelves are actually kind of cleared out after our holiday break, but we currently have hundreds, if not thousands, of parts lined up over there. And if you swing over here just a second, we'll show you that we don't just box parts, but we palletize parts. That shows you the sense of scale that we deal with over here. Most of these are all off the FDM Print Farm is where these are going to. Now, one of the most important parts of any manufacturing is the quality control. So we have over here all of our quality control, shipping and receiving. However, we've actually kind of streamlined this process with the AM Flow. So AM Flow takes pictures of every single part between every single processing step, so we get full traceability of what's going on. Now, as I kind of walk back to something I don't think we've shown in previous videos is the other office side of the facility. Now, inside of here, we've actually kind of modified this room where we enter into is to our kind of SLA, or Photopolymer Lab. Now, these are all Form Labs machines. We actually have downsized our photopolymers because of many of the powder-based technologies that we have. But we do like photopolymers, in particular Form Labs, because their material library and the quality is also extremely great as well. The two things we don't necessarily like on it is volume can be difficult to make bigger parts, and the speed is a little bit slower. But shout out to Merit 3D. I think they're one of the few companies that I've seen really be successful at making really great photopolymer at scale. So those guys are doing really great based on what we've seen. So as we transition down here into our showroom, this is something that, again, we haven't shown before. One of the things that is of note, we do a lot of work. We do a lot of really cool projects that are going into really cool applications. However, we also take confidentiality very seriously. So we don't often show specific parts for a lot of our clients. However, everything in this showroom is getting permission from our clients to show, or parts that we've produced themselves. We have all of our FDM over here and SLA, and we have all of our MJF options on this side of the shelf. Now, I mentioned earlier about the HP 580 and doing full color options. Now, that's one of the things is that, again, we're very proud of. Everything on this side of the shelf is all made with HP MJF technology, and you can see the amount of color diversity that we have with our HP 580 full color machine and the HP 5420W, or the white machine. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. We're excited that you even took the time out of your day to do it. There's a lot more that we can go into in depth. We wanted to make this a kind of a quick overview and focus more on the things that have changed over the last year. We look forward to doing this again in 2025. If you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to us. Go to our website, i-solids.com, and all that stuff that we always like, comment, subscribe, and we appreciate you taking the time.